to tell. And I was sort of so surprised by the question and quite nervous, and I couldn't think of a single funny story. But there is a Richard E. Grant story. It's just a bit vulgar. Go on. Richard, one day on the set, got the children. You know the movie I'm talking about, Little Vampire? Do people know that movie?
Yeah.
It's a very, very sweet movie. Very life-affirming, sweet movie. It's full of children. And we were hanging around on set one day, and Richard taught the children how to light a fart. The trouble is, they got so wild and excited that they kept on having him do it. I don't know how he managed it. But he almost burned himself. That was the real kick. He singed his costume. So there you have it. That's my one funny story. So Richard was pretty wild, pretty out there. He's a funny guy.
Next question, guys.
Any other questions?
Anyone over there?
Yeah.
This is the chap up there.
Hi. Thinking back to Ghost Story.
Yes.
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 Did you ever get the dance with it?
No. The question was about a movie called Ghost Story with Fred Astaire. I don't know if most of you have seen it, but it was an extraordinary experience. It was the second movie I ever did. I was 25. I just started acting, and I got to work with Fred Astaire, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Melvyn Douglas, and John Houseman and Pat Neal. And they were like the real thing. They were proper movie stars. They were wonderful. They were an object lesson for a young actor in how to behave on set, really. They were so gallant and they were so gentlemanly, and they always showed up perfect, totally ready. They were all in their 80s. It was the last movie any of them ever did. Fred Astaire was 83, and we did a scene, you know, where he's driving in the car and she appears and the car turns over and he crawls out of the car in the snow. He was 83. He did his own stunt. And it was however many degrees below freezing. And Fred Astaire crawled out of his car in the snow on his hands and knees. Extraordinary professionals. They really were incredibly special. It was an enormous gift for a young actor. The other actor who I've met subsequently, who has that kind of really wonderful quality, is an actor called Morgan Freeman, who has that kind of, we meet him and we just kind of stand with your heart beating. There's just something so special and charismatic, and they certainly have that.
All right, next question, guys.
Someone's got to have a question.
I have a few in the bank, but I would rather you guys ask.
Yes, great.
Yeah.
Obviously you appeared in the Star Trek First Contact and also Voyager, but did you have a love for sci-fi or anything of that ilk before playing the part?
You know, I don't have an attachment to any particular genre. What I suppose makes me tick as an actor, what's of interest to me is discovering a character, discovering why a character does what she does. And it's been a very privileged life that I've had. I guess I've been doing this for about 36 years, and I've been lucky enough to always be able to to support myself as an actor. I haven't had to do anything else. I've always worked. And to start off with, what fascinated me was that you could get inside someone else's reality. I've played a number of roles that were actually real people. Some of them were still alive when I portrayed them. Famously, one was Joan Collins. Now that was something. But that was what was really fascinating to me. But it's become very interesting over time because my idea of the nature of the privilege that you have as an actor has changed. In that now, for me, what's amazing is I've come to understand how fluid reality is. We kind of think of it as set, but of course it's not. It's about what we choose. The choices the Borg Queen makes were not my choices, but she creates her own reality because of her choices. So it's been very, very interesting that if you figure out that you're making choices that you don't like, you can change them. But as an actor, you really, really get to live that on an ongoing basis, that your choices create your reality. So I look upon myself as having, it's a difficult life because you seriously never know if you're going to work again. I worked on a series called The OA, that if anyone gets Netflix, 16th of December, The OA comes out. I've no idea whether it works or not. It's a piece about near-death experience and travelling to other dimensions in the process of dying and coming back. It's very interesting writing, but it's got quite a dark sort of underbelly. 8 episodes, I have no idea whether it's worked or not. But that was in June, and I haven't worked since, and I don't know if I ever will. So you pay a price for the choice to be an actor, but the rewards, if you're lucky, are enormous.
You mentioned there's a lot of dark tones in the way that you've just done. You've done some things that have very dark tones that sound like how many things you mentioned it got darker and darker as the film went on. What is it about those kind of movies that attracts you?
No, it doesn't attract me, it's what I get offered. I mean, my husband says I'm typecast when I do those roles. He said, well, of course you're going to play the Borg Queen. Stands to reason, which is a bit upsetting, but anyway. I don't know why. I don't know why I get offered work like that. I do get offered other work. I mean, I have played regular people, and people who weren't depraved, like Christabella in Silent Hill. The one piece of work that I actually regret being part of, because the Borg Queen is clearly in a realm of fantasy, whereas Christabella, although she's really in a created universe that's in another dimension, she's sufficiently real that she could actually be in Syria cutting off heads right now. In fact, she probably is. And in a way, I actually regret putting her out there. But the trouble is that when you commit to something, you can't stop halfway. If you've committed to Christabella, you kind of have to go there. And I don't know if anyone's seen it. If you haven't, don't. You don't want that universe inside your head. But if you have seen it, this is a kind of crystallization of what the experience was for me. I had a little dog at that point who's died since, and her name was Skipper. And she was a little Belgian barge dog, little, that big. And as far as she was concerned, I was her human. I was her two legs. And so when I went away to work, Skipper would wait for me at the gate. she would go and check up on my husband and the other dogs a couple of times a day. She'd go in for dinner, she'd go in to sleep. But during the day, Skipper sat at the gate and waited. And the last 2 weeks of Silent Hill was just me burning people in a church, ranting, utterly depraved. And I get home, and Skipper's at the gate, and I get out of the car, and I walk up to the gate, and Skipper's wagging. And I walk up to the gate, she stops wagging, and she looks at me. She looks at me, and she backs off. My dog would not come near me. And I went off 3 weeks later to do another picture, and when I came back from that picture, Skipper said, right, well, okay, you're back. And she was prepared to talk to me when I got back from the contract. So that was the most extreme experience I've actually ever had as an actor in terms of a character's energy field infiltrating my own, that it was really hard to shift. So I hope that I never ever get offered another Christabel. I think I would say no. I'd have to be really, really hard up to say yes.
Take a couple more questions here. Anyone this?
Yeah. You can use my mic.
When you did Christabel, did you realise how utterly terrifying it should be when you read the script?
No, because I was saying to someone earlier today, you know, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but there's this terrifying creature called Pyramid Man. And there's a moment where Pyramid Man pursues the people in this dimension, and they run to a church for sanctuary, and he gets hold of one of them on the steps of the church. And what he does to them is truly horrifying. But it's described in about 2 sentences in the film script. And when I actually heard what they had done when they filmed it, I'm not in the sequence, my blood kind of ran cold. And I had to watch it because I had to go to the premiere. So I actually had to watch the movie. No. And additionally, they kind of rewrote as we were going along, and it actually got darker and darker with each rewrite. So that, I mean, and the way they tear her apart at the end, that wasn't in the script that I committed to. But by that time, I couldn't walk away. You know, I'd already done 3 weeks of filming by the time that rewrite showed up. So sometimes it's kind of unexpected.
Any more questions there?
Someone's going to have a question. There we are. One of the, yeah.
What was it like filming Solomon Kane?
Well, Solomon Kane was lovely to film. It was difficult to watch because, again, there were so many arms and legs and heads cut off in that movie. But I wasn't really part of that. But what was, and this is another thing in an actor's life, is what was really wonderful about it was that I got to work with Pete Postlethwaite before he died. Because I had been with Pete at Stratford. We were in the same season, so we did plays together. And he was a wild man. He was a brilliant actor, but wild man. There was always a group of actors at the RSC who would literally finish a performance and then go over the road to the pub and drink all night, go into rehearsal the next morning, rehearse all day. And that was so beyond my capacity as a human being that he amazed me, but he was probably one of the most talented actors I've ever worked with. So I worked with Pete at Stratford, and then I worked with him again on Sharp. And then Blow Me Down, he was my husband in Solomon Kane. And I got to to work with him again, and shortly thereafter he died. But that was great, and it took me back to Prague, which is an interesting city. That's another thing. You actually get to go to places where I would never go, you know, as a private individual. And so we filmed in very dark, very, very cold, frozen forest outside Prague. But through the course of my working life, I've filmed in Italy probably 5 times on 5 different projects. And the thing is always to find amazing locations. They don't, for the most part, you don't film in ordinary places. You get taken to places where, you know, the public never goes, inside palaces and, you know, museums and amazing places. So I've had brilliant experiences in that, just that. And also you don't go as a tourist, you kind of get embedded because you work with an Italian crew, for example. I was working on a series for the BBC called Devil's Advocate. True story, again, about a northerner who gets accused of witchcraft in the south of Italy, around Naples. Anyway, and I played the lawyer who defends her and actually gets her off. But there was one day, we were filming in Naples, right? Naples is a kind of insane city. I don't know if anyone's been there. The most people I saw on a Vespa was a family of 5 and a dog. I don't know how they did it. Pretty anarchic city. Anyway, we were shooting on a Friday night in the happening piazza in Naples. It had one street through it, and the other 3 sides were buildings. Now, we were in a mafia part of Naples, and they had to pay the mafia a massive kickback to keep us safe, right? So all the equipment trucks are parked in this street. And the production manager got very drunk that night and suddenly decided he was done paying the mafia. So he called the mafia boss and he said, "This is it. We're not paying you for it." Oh, they wanted more money. That's right. They came and said, "We need a bit more because the square is so busy this Friday night." It was full of people. And the production manager, who was quite pissed, said, "No." The mafia said, "All right then." And they left the set. The Italian actors went grey under their towels. They said, "Do you know what's just happened? The mafia have left. We're going to die." They pulled us all in. They closed the gates, the great big gates of this house that we were shooting in. And the producer was woken. He was asleep. It was 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning. The producer was woken. He came to set and he said to the production manager, "You apologise." The production manager sobered up pretty fast and he had to go and apologise. Mafia boss. And they came back. So, I mean, you get to have kind of wild experiences, or at any rate I have. And then you get the pleasure of coming to somewhere like Newcastle. And given that the world is in such a mad, crazy state, this just feels very comforting and reassuring. Thank you for coming.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alice Krige.